everybody, welcome back to my channel. This is the Twitter-pated Mama, and this is officially our first book club. So for the last several weeks we've been reading We Are Never Meeting in Real Life by Samantha Irby. And so this is the first time we are going to get together and talk about this book a little bit. So, 3 words. I took some notes. 3 words to describe this book. Honest, hilarious, and raunchy. This is so raw and so real that I blushed several times while reading this book. I have never been this honest about life or life experiences, and she just completely opens up and lets you all the way in to who she is as a person, how she lives her life, and some really private experiences and private emotions and things that you don't expect to find in most books. I thoroughly enjoyed this read. I laughed out loud in my house, in my car, in my office, wherever I was reading this book. And it is the type of funny that you want to reread and that you want other people to listen to, because it is so funny as you're reading it that you have to experience it with somebody else. So several times I dragged my husband into it, or my coworkers, or anybody that I could find to pull in and say, listen to this, let me read you this part, or let me tell you about what happened to her, so that I have somebody to laugh with. So my hopes in doing this kind of book club thing is to have some conversation. So if things come up for you, if you have read this book, and you want to comment down below with some of your thoughts, some of your ideas, things that stood out to you, please do, because that's kind of the point of this. And if you haven't read it yet, you know, you can listen to some of my commentary on it, what I thought, and then go get it and then come back and leave me some comments so that I can have a little bit of conversation about this really, really great read. So this is the type of book that I could honestly dissect every single chapter, but I don't have time for that. I don't want this to be a 2 or 3 hour video. So, highlights, okay? This is a collection of essays, so it's different life experiences that she's had. She talks about being overweight, she talks about growing up poor, she talks about her parents, her family life, she talks about dating, she talks very candidly about sex, single life, finding love. She covers just so many topics. And I will say, for those of you that may have children around or younger people around, there is some vulgar language, and some of the quotes that I'm going to say may have curse words and things like that in it, so just be mindful of that. This is not a G-rated book by any means. So highlight number 1, page 18 begins a chapter called A Blues for Fred, and she's talking about her first experience in a grown-up relationship. And this is just such a relatable chapter, I think, probably for any woman, okay? We've all dated some losers. We've all dated some guys that were children up and until their 20s, maybe even 30s, and her first experience dating this man who had his life together, who was a grown-up, who had a home and had produce sitting on the counter, and who could cook a meal and who could do laundry. And this is the first time that I really felt like, oh man, I connect with this lady. I really connect with her. I understand what it's like to suddenly meet somebody who is making a real life. You know, I felt that way when I met my husband. I had dated silly boys prior to that, and when I met him and he was working and taking care of his life and his job, and I was like, who are you? Granted, I was still in college, so I wasn't doing any of those things yet, but it was very attractive, and it made me look at what I wanted life to be like. So that was the first chapter that really pulled me in. Page 31, we get to a chapter called The Miracle Porker, and if you've read this book, you already know what I'm talking about. She has a little kitty cat, and her kitty cat's name is Helen Keller. And how she comes about this cat is kind of by circumstances of her job, and she's kind of pushed onto this cat. But this was the first chapter that I was really, really laughing out loud when she's describing her kitty. And this is a quote straight from the book, a pig demon from hell. That's how she describes this cat. And for me, I have a cat. His name is Binksy D'Angelo. He is an angel. And he is just like the love, one of the loves of my life. Prior to my children, he was my baby. I got him when I was 16 years old. I took him. He was born in my friend's shed in their backyard. And I brought him home, and he was just my little perfect fluff ball. And I remember sitting on the couch with my mom before I left for college crying because I wasn't sure she was going to pick him up and hold him and love him the way that I did. So her relationship with the cat, she really plays it to be kind of a hatred relationship. She does commentary for the cat, like what the cat would be saying to her, and it's so funny. So that's by far one of my favorite chapters. Let's go into, let's see, page 40. Okay, page 40 we go into a chapter called, Do You Guys Pay Your Fucking Bills or What? And if you're familiar with my channel, or familiar with any of my videos, and maybe you're not, so I'll just tell you, my husband and I follow Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University. We follow the baby steps to manage our finances, and we are in the process of paying off our debt. So we are on a strict budget. We budget constantly. We budget monthly. We budget every 2 weeks. We're always talking about it. And this chapter, she's talking about budgeting. And granted, she comes from a poor background where, you know, things like Fruit Loops were a luxury. And so now that she's kind of making money and doing well, she's living paycheck to paycheck and living the high life when she gets paid. And it is so enjoyable and so relatable because for a long time we were doing the same thing. But it's another point in this book where I was like, we are not so similar, Miss Irby, because I love budgeting. I love spreadsheets. I love seeing the balance. I love all of that. And she talks about it as if it is the very worst thing you could possibly have to do. Actually, on page 45, she says, a lot of us are living like this, right? Taking cabs and ordering takeout Thai on payday, then walking the 3 blocks to work from the train with a bologna sandwich in our bags a week or so later. How does anyone do anything? Or better than that, how does anyone do both the shit they want to do with their money at the same time they're doing the shit they need to do? And we can all relate to that, right? It's difficult to live within your means. There's plenty of things you want to purchase that you probably can't. But we all make those choices. But this was a fun chapter, and I did love kind of hearing her perspective as somebody that didn't grow up with much. Really just wanting to get all those things that she was deprived of early in life. So I enjoyed that. Page 65. Okay, I can't even with this chapter. Page 65, we get to a chapter called A Christmas Card. And it starts off, okay, calm. We're talking about college. We're talking about some friends that she made in college. But then you move on to page 72. And this is probably, there's 2 main parts of this book that had me laughing out loud that I couldn't even breathe. This is one of them. She has several medical issues, but one of which is, I believe, irritable bowel syndrome. And she's driving home with her friends for Christmas break and made the poor choice of eating McDonald's. Okay, we've all been there. We've all had the tummy troubles after eating some food we shouldn't. But they're in a car. And they're stuck on a highway with no place to go because it's holiday traffic. And she ends up, and this is so vulgar and I'm going to say it, she ends up shitting on the side of the road, hanging out of the car. And her writing, this one makes me feel good about saying this, her writing puts you in that moment with her so clearly. And I can't even with this. It is so funny. I did read this out loud to my husband because I wanted him to experience this chapter with me. I had already read it, I had already enjoyed it, and I needed him to be a part of it with me. So if you haven't read this book yet, please look forward to page 72. Fast forward a bit to page 166. We are going into a chapter called, I don't like to use foul language on my channel, but it's called Fuck It Bitch Stay Fat. I'm sorry. But that's what it's called. This was the second part of this book that had me laughing, dying, rolling on the ground, all of the above. It was perfection. This chapter, she's talking about, she's in a new relationship. She's in a great relationship with this woman who's pretty different from her, who kind of has life put together a little bit better, who's put together a little bit better herself, just in terms of how she dresses and conducts herself. She's got children, which is different than Samantha, and her girlfriend wants her to meet some of her mom friends, which is a big deal, right? Meeting your significant other's friends. So they're having like what seems like a brunch, okay? They're having, you know, casseroles and French toast and all these beautiful little foods. And she breaks a chair. She is sitting in a chair and it breaks and she crashes to the ground. And if you've never experienced that, I've experienced something close to that. And I think that's what made me laugh so much harder, is that I could relate to this so well. So again, if you're new to my channel, I used to be over 300 pounds. I have lost a lot of weight with Weight Watchers. But when I was at my heaviest, I broke a chair. And I am thankful that there was not a lot of people around. I was actually sitting in my office in a desk chair, in a well-made, well-constructed chair, and typing or writing or whatever I was doing intently. And it happened so quickly that I really didn't even know what had happened. But essentially, my chair leg had snapped. I fell straight to the ground and the chair kind of just came up over the top of me. And my coworker, who was in an office across from me, didn't see it, but she heard it and was like, what is going on? And I'm like climbing out from underneath my desk. It was humiliating. Once I realized what had happened, I snapped a chair. It was humiliating. But she talks about the 5 stages of holy shit, I just broke a chair in front of people. And it's perfect. It completely sums up exactly how you feel and the emotions you go through when something like that happens. But again, she talks about these really, really personal, private, embarrassing things so openly and so honestly and so relatably. And she's just so endearing. She's just so endearing. The last part of the book that I want to talk about is page 182, which is in a chapter called Nashville Hot Chicken. She has not a great relationship with her father, but she ends up taking possession of his ashes after he passes away, and she goes with her girlfriend to Nashville to dump his ashes. And while this is happening, while she is actively dumping the ashes, a gust of wind carries the ashes into her face. And it's just the most awful experience you can think of. And yet it is so funny to read her depiction of what happened. So, but a lot of the takeaway for me from this book is that life is really funny. And some of the things that are very tragic and very trying can really help us relate to one another in a really personal way. And I think that's my biggest takeaway from this, is I really feel like books like this that are so open, that are so honest, are what help us understand each other and what help us connect to each other. Because honestly, I'm very, very different than Samantha Irby. I mean, I have a lot of different life experiences, but I think if you talk to someone long enough, you find things in common and it draws you together. And I think that is part of the importance of these writers that are being so open and so honest. I recently read Hunger by Roxane Gay, and I said a lot of the same things in my review of that book, which was that it was just so raw and so honest and just inspiring. And I hope one day, you know, I've toyed with the idea of writing a book, and I won't do it until I'm at a place that I can be completely honest, because that's the only way you're gonna move people. It's the only way you're gonna, you know, show people what your life is about and what you're about. So great read. Thank you, Natalie, my friend that recommended this to me. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was so funny. Quick read. It's essays, so the nice thing about that, if you are a busy person, you got a lot going on, you don't have to sit and read this all in one sitting. Each chapter is about something completely different. It's not like you have to remember the beginning to get through to the end. So I highly recommend this. Please leave me a comment below if you've read this about your favorite part of this book. Again, if you haven't read it yet, go get it, pick up a copy, read it, and then come back and leave me some comments down below, because it is so fun. And it's a book you should definitely check out. It is raunchy. It is going to test your blush meter, I guess, because there was just some parts of it that I was like, oh my gosh, we're going there. But still, great read. So thank you so much if you joined me for book club number 1. I am going to be doing a new book club, and the book that we're going to be reading is going to be popping up right here. So please come back and see me again on March 1st, and we will be doing my second installment of book club. Hit that like button before you go. Subscribe if you want to continue to watch me and hear some of the things that I have to say about life. And as always, I appreciate you. Thank you.